In this section, we're going to talk about the easier way, the preferred way to create PhoneGap apps, and that's with Adobe PhoneGap Build, which is at build.phonegap.com. And if we look at the documentation, I mean, there's quite a bit of documentation configuring your app, signing keys for iOS. Let's go to understanding your app. So PhoneGap requires an application to be packaged in a specific manner that may not be intuitive at first. They use an open packaging model that follows the W3C widget packaging specifications. So let's see down here, it says, what do I upload? So PhoneGap Build only requires the assets of your application. So it only needs the files and folders that are in that assets folder. This is essentially your www directory, which contains HTML, CSS, images, and JavaScripts. PhoneGap Build will most likely fail to compile your application if native files are uploaded. So you don't want to upload any kind of Java or C or any of that. We're only uploading web languages. Once you've included the necessary assets, remove the PhoneGap.js or Cordova.js, as Build will automatically inject it during compile time. And the reason they do this is because these two are the same files, PhoneGap.js and Cordova.js. Each platform needs a separate PhoneGap or Cordova JavaScript file. So you have to get rid of it and then upload your application, and then PhoneGap will put that JavaScript file back. And it explains that all here. If you want to go over the documentation, how do I configure my application? We can have a file called config.xml, which we can configure all kinds of stuff. We'll look at that in a little bit. So this is basically how everything works. You have this interface of your apps, and you can with the free plan, you can upload one private app, but you can upload unlimited open source apps. And to do that, you need to create a GitHub account and connect through that, which we'll do in a second. Actually, we'll do that now. So, because if you go to sign in, you'll either need an Adobe ID, or you can sign in with GitHub, which is what we're going to do. So let's go to GitHub. I already have an account, but I will build another one, create another one. We'll just say Eduonics. The name already exists. Alright, so we'll do Brad Eduonics. They only contain oh, I'm sorry, I need a dash. Alright. Email, I'll just give my support email. Password. Alright. So, Brad Eduonics, I have no repositories, as you can see. So what we need to do is, create a very simple PhoneGap application. Not even really a PhoneGap application, but something we can put through the build compiler, just something static. So let's create a repository by clicking up here, and we'll name it, just name it test app. Okay, we can initialize a README file, but we don't need to. This is going to be public because to have private repositories on GitHub you have to pay, you have to get a plan. So let's click create repository, and then it gives you these very helpful commands to upload your app into your repository. Now I'm not going to go over GitHub and how everything works, all the version control and what you can do. All I'm going to show you how to do is update your code, update into your repository, which is basically these commands here. So let's go to, we need to figure out where we're going to put our local app, and we'll do that. I have XAMPP on, do I have it on this system? Let me just check something out. Okay, I have XAMPP, which is an Apache server, and it has PHP and MySQL, and it can run on Windows. You don't need to use this for JavaScript and HTML because it's serverless for the most part. But I still like to use, I still like to put my projects inside of my htdocs folder. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say new test app. Okay. Now you can use whichever text editor or IDE that you want to. You can use Notepad++, which is a really nice lightweight editor. But I prefer NetBeans for projects like this, and NetBeans is absolutely free, so do a Google search if you want to download it. You can download the Java platform or PHP, which is what I'm going to use. I'm not going to be coding any PHP right now, but it's just it'll take, the project will be created as if it was for a PHP script, which I'll show you in a second. While we're waiting, let's go to our test app and just create an index file. Okay, I think that's all we'll need. Alright, so if I go to NetBeans and what's going on here? Go to new project, and I'm going to choose PHP with existing sources, and I'm going to browse to my folder, which was in my htdocs folder in test app. Okay, so that'll be our directory for our project. Alright, so now we have our index file here. Now what I want to do is do our first upload with GitHub, and we need to download GitHub for Windows, and I had that link somewhere right here. Okay, so let's download. I actually already have it in my downloads folder, so let's go there. Okay, let's see. I'm just going to keep all the default options. I'm going to keep it at git bash only. I'm not sure what happened. It looks like it needed to shut down Windows Explorer. Okay. This is a virtual machine, and it's been a little buggy lately. Oh, there we go. Alright, so I'm going to go to my start menu, I don't want the git GUI, I want the command line just because it's easier. I think it's easier, which is git bash. So I'm going to put that on my desktop, open that up, and you can see it starts in our user directory. We can actually change that if we right click and go to properties. Right here, start in, we have environmental variables here, but we can change this. I'm going to change this to C XAMPP htdocs. Yep, htdocs. Okay, so if I apply that and then open this up, it opens at XAMPP htdocs. So now if we list our files here and folders, you can see we have, where is it, test app. So we want to get to that directory with cd test app, and we have our one index file. So what we need to do is initialize our actually the first thing we need to do is configuration. And so we want to do git. Every command when you're dealing with git, you need to have git at the beginning. So we're going to say git config. This is something we'll only need to do once. We'll say global user dot name, and then we just want to put the name, and we can do the same thing with email. And if you want to get back to code you just typed, you just tap the up arrow. Actually, I use a different support. Okay, global email. Alright. We can check our settings with git config list, and it shows the username and email that we just typed in and some other stuff that doesn't really apply to us. So what we need to do now is, first, if we go back to our repository, we don't need to add the readme, so we don't need that. We need to initialize it here. Alright, so let's go to, we want to do git init. So it initialized a directory. So now if I look at our test app folder, we have a git.git file which is hidden. It's only shown because I use this a tag. So the next thing we want to do is git add, and this will add all of anything we want to the staging part of the repository, to our local staging. So we want to do git add and then a dot, which means all. So we want to add everything in this folder to our repository. Now the next stage is to do a commit. Git commit, and I use this am tag, and then we need a comment here, which we can say initial commit. Okay, so it's ready to be pushed. So now what we need to do is, let's just copy this whole line right here and paste that in. And finally, we want to do our first push. So this here will actually push it to the GitHub repository. So username for GitHub, what was my, I think that means my email address. And then password was, I think that was it. Authentication failed. Alright, so let's try that push again. Alright, that's good. So now it pushed the file to the server. So now if we go back to our test app repository and reload, you can see we have our index file, and we can even look at it. It has nothing in it. We can make a change to it. Let's just say file has been changed. Okay, I'm just gonna teach you a little bit about Git, so save that. Might be getting off course here, but so what we can do now, we can see that we did change a file. To see what's changed, we can say git status, and you can see that it says modified index HTML. So we can do git add again, which will add it to the local repository, or the staging local repository, and then we want to do git commit am, and I'll just say commit. That should be a little more descriptive. This is a comment that can be seen next to each push or commit, so it should be more descriptive, but that's fine for us. And then we want to push. Now all we need to do now from now on is git push. We don't need to add that origin like we did before. So git push. It's asking for our username again. Usually it doesn't do that. Okay, so that's pushed. Let's go back to our repository and click on index, and you can see file has been changed. So that's all you have to do to keep up-to-date files in your repository. Alright, so let's refresh. What we did was went over Adobe Build. We read over some of the documentation. We created a GitHub account, which we will use to sign in the next video. We created a repository for a test app, and which just has the index HTML. We learned a little bit about Git and the syntax. We downloaded Git Bash for Windows and used that. So in the next video, I'd like to actually create some code and bring it into PhoneGap build.